Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is The Broke Capitalist, and I want to thank you for joining me here today. I'm sure you could be off doing other things like committing crimes or signing divorce papers, but you chose to click on that button. So I hope you go further and click on that like, share, and subscribe button as well. I want to start off today with a little advice, right, that I heard. I don't know where I heard it from, but it's good, so I'm going to share it. Don't be envious of people. Be inspired by people. Bam! That should carry you on through the day. So listen, you guys know, or some of you guys know who've been here before, the reason I started putting my face out into the ethers is because I believe we need a new narrative, or at least a competing narrative, right? And the other day I was watching Tim Pool, and I was thinking, hey, whoa, Tim Pool's been watching my show. Now, that's probably not the case. So I'm assuming great minds think alike. You know, he read my mind when he said he was going to start to build a culture around a new narrative by associating cool activities and music, like skateboard, around a narrative of like independence or center thought instead of left leaning or right leaning, whatever. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the point is, he, like myself, saw a need for a competing narrative or culture. There is no competition right now. I mean, I totally agree with him. Currently, the left has a monopoly on all cultural, educational, and entertainment avenues, all of them, right? And included in that, but not limited to, is that area of politics and social discourse, whatever you want to call it. Here's an example of the state of America. All right, everyone listening to my voice has probably heard of Cornel West, and if you haven't, I'm sorry to make that assumption, but I'm assume most of you guys in America anyway have heard of the name Cornel West. But a lot of people have no idea who Dr. Thomas Sowell is. And for those who know who Dr. Thomas Sowell is and have read any of his books and have also read Cornel West's book, I don't know if he has more than one. I've read one. That tells you a lot about the state of America, right? These are two Black men, well-educated. One is on the extreme left end and one is just on the right, right? Anyway, education is all left-leaning. The news, all left-leaning. All right, you can sprinkle in Fox, right? And some of these new internet news agencies, right? But TV, mainstream television, all left-leaning. Movies, all left-leaning. And some of you guys may have heard me in my little rant about the new 007 movie having a sister 007. And I thoroughly believe that. So what if she's Black? So what if 007 is a female? The problem I believe most people will have with this is the fact that they've already said that she's bringing a lot of social justice issues into the film. So you're talking about typecasting and stereotyping people. Like, you can't have a Black woman or a Black man not bring forth social justice issues. Come on, man. And then what really got me going was the takeover in the video game space and in the comic space. Now, I haven't been in the comics in a long time, but they're connected, right? So my favorite video game of all time, I've been playing video games since Pong, right, is The Last of Us. Reason why? Simple. The storyline was phenomenal. It was amazing. And the second reason was, at the time, in 2012, the graphics were outstanding, right? We waited until this election year to get The Last of Us 2, and it was terrible. Like, man, there's no way anybody can say that storyline was good. No way. But guess what? They got a whole bunch of awards for it anyway. So the left just controls it all. And, books, right? evidenced by White Fragility being #1 bestseller. How in the world can a person write a book that calls every white person alive a racist and it be on the bestseller list, right? Man, look, it is okay. Now, I'm gonna give my man a shout out, Hillbilly Elegy. Now, that was just made into a Netflix show. I haven't watched it yet, but I've seen that it got bad reviews, and I can only assume at this point it got bad reviews, not because of the acting, but because of the content. And the content is probably they probably left the content alone. And the content, I don't think I'm gonna spoil anything, but it's about a white guy who grew up in a poor neighborhood around some not so enlightened white people. He figured out through trial and error, support of others, learning from other people's mistakes, that he needed to get out of that environment. He fell victim to having a bad parent, and eventually he be, he became a success, right, as an individual, right. Now, the narrative is that only black people can be victims of society. So that's what I'm assuming it got bad ratings or whatever. But anyway, my point is the left controls all media, culture, education, and we need a competitive narrative. Now, I'm not just saying they're left, so we got to be right. I'm not saying that. We just need competition, right? This is I'm just talking about the competition of ideas, which is essential to a free society, right? No competition, move to Russia, China. You're free to go, right? To understand the effects of this narrative, monopoly. Just ask somebody who voted for Biden. I'm gonna keep saying this. Just ask somebody who voted for Biden to tell you why they voted for Biden without using the name Trump. Now, if I had production, I would put the sounds of crickets right in here, but I don't. So y'all got to imagine hearing crickets. All right. A monopoly of thought or a one-way narrative is very dangerous to a free republic, right? I mean, you know that, right? Right. So I want to urge all of you in all sincerity to support alternative views, even those who you may disagree with. If seriously, you have to support the ability for someone to express an idea. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let them tell you they're racist and expose how stupid they are, right? I don't care if they're black racists or white racists. Maybe that exposure will allow them to hear something that will enlighten them. But if you never are allowed to speak or give an alternative viewpoint, how are they going to learn? Right? So, with that said, I want to urge you guys to support as much alternative media as possible. And oftentimes in the comment section, people suggest that I check out this channel or that channel. So, and I do. And I want to share the channels that I go to for interesting, thought provoking, just common sense information often. And so my man out of Detroit, you guys know I'm from Detroit, Mike in Rethinking the Dollar, he's going to give you information about finance, basically what the Fed is doing, how that affects you, how that affects your purchasing power, what money actually is. I mean, it's a good channel to check out. This guy probably needs no introduction. George Gavin here, he goes into what the Fed is doing, how that affects you, your investments, how to prepare yourself for what's coming, and I'm gonna get to that at the end of this particular episode. And then the walk away campaign. If you're out there feeling like, hey, I just realized what's going on here, but it's too late. I already voted for the guy, right? You're not alone. There's a lot of people in this walk away campaign who did these short videos, myself included, on how they realized that in a lot of cases, they've been duped, right? And here, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. If someone can leave phonetically how to pronounce his name, I would appreciate it. I ain't gonna try and butcher it, but this guy, like myself, loves history, tons of books. He gives books. He does book reviews. He does other things like talks about being hypnotized and doing judo and stuff like this. So interesting cat. Uh, but what I really like about his show is he does book reviews on, and a lot of them are on historical books. So I got a lot of information from him, and one book that was really enlightening was yeah, this guy, uh, George Fitzhugh. He was a pro-slavery advocate back in the day, and his views on slavery and the benefits of slavery is just amazing to read. And lately, I've been checking out the NTD America on cable station, just watching these hearings about voter irregularities going around throughout the country. They're uncensored. They don't bother to give me their opinion on how I should think about the information they just presented. And then Tim Pool from Timcast. I think a lot of you guys already know who he is, but what I really appreciate about him is he used to work for some of these journalists, for some of these big media companies, and he's able to explain how these companies, got this big shadow in my face, how these big companies are able to manipulate the way they present information to us, the consumer, to have us think a certain way, certain ways of framing things. Often in real time, he'll point out how this is, look at this. This is misleading. Why is it misleading? I know, blah, 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 blah. Cool cat, was a lefty. Now he's like, he can't be on the left because the left went so far left, the buses don't even run out there. I just got introduced to this young lady, Gothic. I believe she's a libertarian. We share a lot of views, if that's the case. Interesting show, great thoughts, and yeah, check her out. And my man, Young Ripper 59 here. I came across him when I was complaining about The Last of Us Part 2, and him and a lot of other people who review games and comics and now pop culture, they've been forced to comment on social, pop culture and social justice issues because it's just infiltrated every part of our society. So he's a good guy to check out. Peter Schiff, hopefully goes without saying, if you want to know about economics, the Fed, interest rates, gold, the difference between fiat currency and, real money, check him out. And the Coop Media, young brother who's doing it. And he talks about things, I'm going to say more on a macro level. He talks about, like, I think today he was talking about oil. He talks about China and them going to a digital yuan and things like that. So things you're just not going to hear on mainstream TV because they don't think you should think is important. So besides my channel, please check those guys out and tell them the Broke Capitalist sent you, right? So let's get into this a little bit more. Whatever those who have whoever these people are who hold the monopoly on the narrative, right? They're only going to tell you what they want you to think is important. And over the course of time, you will. But whatever those who hold the monopoly on the narrative believes is detrimental to them, you'll never see or hear about that thing, right? But at its core, what is the left's narrative? Well, let's see. All right, let's see. Let me stop sharing this. Now, today, when you turn on your local news, if you still do that, you're going to be scared by all the people who've lost their lives to this beer illness. Now, that's important. It's scary. And your fear supersedes your logic, right? that's going to get your attention, and it's going to hold your attention, and they're going to get more money for your attention. We all know that. Now, the left uses fear to push the narrative of victimization and security. So that's the narrative, victimization and security. Now, before I used to just harp on victimization, but now I got to tie it into security. We need, is what they're saying. We need the security of lockdowns as a solution. A solution, by the way, that they do not abide by, right? They tell you that exercising your own agency or your own freedoms put others at risk. Where have we heard this before? Well, let me tell you a story, folks. Once upon a time, believe it or not, in this country, slavery was legal. And if I lived during that time, it's a 90% chance that I would have been a slave. Now, that's factual, right? Because 10% of people of African American descent were not slaves, right? Some people lived in the North, Black folks. Some of them actually were homeowners. And some of those people birthed children. And a couple in particular birthed a child with 3 initials for a first name, W.E.B. Du Bois, who turned out to be a socialist and a communist, right? But my point here is, all we hear about Black folks during yesteryear was they were all, basically all slaves. But here we have a prominent Black figure in Black history who knew that his parents owned property and they were free, right? Oh, you didn't know that either? You didn't learn that during Black Victimization Month either? I mean, Black History Month, I'm sorry. Reason why is doesn't fit the narrative of victimization, right? Now, as you know, there were disagreements about slavery. The narrative, here you go. Basically, evil white people wanted to keep poor Blacks as slaves, but the benevolent white abolitionists fought to secure the freedom for the Black slaves. The Civil War ended slavery, end of story. But as Gavin would say, wait, there's more. Fundamentally, the debate over slavery came down to security and liberty. Now, the security proponents, the Democrats, were the pro-slavery advocates who preached amongst other things, right? Amongst other things, they preached that the slaves had it better, and in many cases, they did have it materially better than free whites here in America, in Europe, and especially Eastern Europe. And many of these pro-slavery advocates believed that it would be cruel to cast this poor lot out into freedom to starve, right? In essence, it would be cruel to force upon people who, for generations, never exercised their agency, but instead relied on the agency of a master. Now, the very real possibility of being free to starve in the streets is why some slaves, like President Madison slaves, rejected freedom when it was offered to them. Oh, wait, you didn't learn about that in your education, your left-leaning educational institution either? They never mentioned that, never saw a movie about that? Oh, okay. But the proponents of liberty, the Republicans, were those who wanted to abolish slavery, right? They wanted to give agency to the slaves. They wanted them to stand on their own merit. They wanted them to not just have liberty, but the responsibility that comes with liberty. Basically, they wanted them to be free to die in the streets or survive and thrive, right? Some, but not all, right? Some are not, but not all of these anti-slavery people were abolitionists. You heard of them. There were some who were opposed to slavery, but they were not abolitionists, right? Now, some abolitionists like Stephen Pearl Andrews, dudes aren't named Pearl anymore, except for the basketball player. But this guy, who wrote The Science of Society. In thought and in action, this dude was a socialist, flat out, right? The socialist wing of the abolitionists saw a real flaw in capitalism, which is the lack of security, right? And they saw how capitalists could use a competitive wage market to force down wages. So let's take, hey, Bob, I need you to do this job. Okay, Bob says, I'll do it for $1. Then John behind him says, hey, I'll do it for 80 cents. Then Jim behind him says 79 cents, right? Like they're doing The Price is Right. Now, that possibility is there, right? But one flaw in Stephen Pearl Andrews' reasoning, and in my opinion, all socialist and communist reasoning, is that they view 79-cent Jim as stagnant, as a statue. He can never improve his lot, right? They don't consider his freedom. They don't consider his agency to obtain a better skill set and therefore become or be able to demand more money, right? They didn't take that advice of not being envious of people, but to be inspired by people. They were just, these socialists and communists are always just envious of people. Okay? Now, why is the broke capitalist telling you about a flaw in capitalism? Because it's the truth, right? But capitalism is the best system we got. Socialism and communism don't work, right? It is and always will be detrimental to the smallest minority, the individual, right? Ultimately, America is more aligned with the creed of give me liberty or give me death. Give me, for better or worse, just give me the freedom to choose to die in the streets. It's harsh, but that's the reality. We rejected the creed of security, right? We rejected the belief that somebody out there got to help support me and my 5 kids, right? We rejected that. Now, before you get all up in arms, I am not saying or implying that we don't need social programs or a social safety net. Talk about that another day. I'm just trying to make a point. Now, from the premise of security or liberty, right? With that in mind, let's revisit the left's media monopoly and their narrative of victimization and security that flows throughout the education, news, TV, movie, video games, and book sphere, right? Now, the narrative of he, she, they are victims and big government security is all around us. It's like the force, right? Feel the media feel the media narrative that reinforces the belief, especially around election years. The force is particularly strong, right? That Blacks need big government laws to protect Blacks from the races around every corner, right? Why? Because whites have no agency in being racist. Example, White Fragility, that book, right? Feel the media narrative that reinforces the belief that women and wives need special government laws to protect them from men and husbands because women and wives have no agency in choosing a proper mate, or their proper mate has no agency to act proper, right? I'll slow it down. Or that narrative that all employers are evil and only want to pay women in particular less than they have to, and definitely less than men. Feel that narrative of how the CEO of Salesforce noticed the disparity in the salary of men and women who did the same job. And like Superman, he just swooped in and equalize everybody's salary, rectifying the injustice? Can you also feel the force blocking information concerning women who were hired for the same job as a man, but with a less marketable resume when she was hired? Right? Think about it. You can hire a woman to work at Salesforce who graduated from my alma mater, Eastern Michigan University. Or you can hire a woman who graduated from Harvard in the same discipline. Which one do you think will have a higher starting salary? And if you don't know, you should know, right? Now, can you feel the force telling you that the reasons why the average man is more willing to bust his ass to have a more marketable resume than the average woman? Can you feel the force telling you why those reasons are not important, right? Could these reasons be because his parents and society told him all his life and didn't tell her that he will be responsible for himself, his wife, and his children? It's a legitimate reason. It's a legitimate, frame of reference. But the force is going to keep that away from you. Now, if you are raising your daughter, right, today, and you are not telling her that she may be responsible for not just taking care of herself, but her husband and her kids, you're doing your daughter a disservice. That's just my opinion. You can do with that what you like. So there you have it. Now, Phil, let's keep feeling the force, y'all. Feel the force reinforcing the belief that we need regulation to protect you from other yous, right? Because you have no agency in staying out of crowds. You have no agency in deciding to stay away from your grandparents. You have no agency in wearing a mask when you're within 6 feet of another person. You don't have that agency, so the government has got to force you to do something, right? So, yes, let's close down those restaurants. Oh, but don't close down the restaurant the government official is eating in. What are you doing, right? It is worth repeating that having a monopoly on media narratives allows the left to determine what is important to you. It's kind of like the Jedi mind trick, right? And whatever they tell you is important will never be detrimental to them, right? That is why the competition of ideas is so vital in a free society. Now, let me ask you something. You get a participation grade in this class, right? So let me ask you something. Do you think that it would be detrimental to big government and their cronies if all news outlets began constantly talking about the largest wealth transfer going on right now in human history? What am I talking about? Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Now that would be like I don't know, a show that's just way too long. But where is it at? Yeah. Anyway, greatest wealth transfer in human history is taking place right now. 23.6% of all US dollars were created in the last year. If this was Mr. Robinson's neighborhood, the word inflation would be up on that board. Hey, come on, y'all. This is important. Yes, people dying of a beer virus is important. The hospitals overflowing with the sick, that's important. You can't tell me you don't have time to talk about this. You get a quarter of all our money in circulation was created in 1 year. What does that do to your parents' pension, to your pension? What does that do to the price of bread, gas? It doesn't hit you like a smack in the face. It's like a tsunami. The water goes out slowly and it comes in slowly. But if your toes are in tsunami water, you're already dead. This is a tsunami, right? So I digress, kind of. So basically, after this uh, transfer of money is complete, they'll be talking about it then, right? Too late, it's over. But when our money dies, like it did here, another book, go check it out, y'all. Adam Ferguson, When Money Dies, right? Talking about what happened in the Weimar Republic. That's post World War One in Germany, pre World War Two, where you had a situation where their money was inflated so much that people would roll wheelbarrows full of money to the store, go into the store, leave the wheelbarrow full of money outside for some reason. I don't know why they would do that, but when they come back out, somebody stole their wheelbarrow and left all their money, right? And you don't even have to go all the way back to post World War, post World War One, pre World War Two, to find examples of what happens when your money dies, right? You don't have to do that. You can just check out Venezuela, right? But apparently, the left's news outlets don't think this is important at all. And so, therefore, you won't think this is important at all. And that's why we need competition of ideas, right? So I want to ask you to please reject the left's monopoly on thought by supporting centralist thought and right-leaning thought. Now, besides channels like mine and the channels that I put on the screen, there are books out there that you can find, and I'm not aware of any mainstream content as far as TV or movies that are like centrist or right in thought. Maybe Hillbilly Elegy, because the book was center right, right. But if you can find any media, put it in the comments section. People read the comments and they leave some jewels there, man. I tell you, like a guy actually left this. He didn't even leave it in the comments section, but he tracked me down to my website. But Slavery by William Channing, another abolitionist. Awesome, man. This is an awesome book. Written in, I think, 1832. You check it out, man. Check it out. So anyway, I'm gonna leave you guys. But if you want some more mainstream, up-to-date content to read besides all this historical stuff I'm always talking about, I wrote about myself in Our Two Societies, won 2 awards. There they are. So it's worth your time reading anyway. And it's not about a black and white society. It's about kind of like my experience in America, outside of America, looking back on America, realizing that there's 2 different societies, somewhat of an individualist and somewhat of a collectivist society. And I'm working on a series called Ideas in Blood. The first book is called Nyack. And it's a historical fiction book. And I'm working on part 2 now. Hopefully that'll be out by the first of next year. And I basically take a lot of these historical gems and I'm weaving it into a historical fiction book with footnotes and citations. Hey, so you can check these things out, because some of them, I mean, you just probably won't believe them, right? It is a historical fiction book anyway, but sometimes the truth is greater than fiction. Now, with that said, I'm going to leave you. And until next time, remember, don't be envious of people. Be inspired by people. And share this. If you're still here listening to me, please share this content, subscribe and like and all that good stuff. And until next time, be safe out there. Peace.